Hello, all
Do I
my
need to sing?
hypothetical.
Do I need to sing too? Here, I can sing too. One, two, three. One, two, three. Perfect. I just went back and forth with my cursor on my screen. Perfect. We're good. Anyway, sorry, cut you off. This better
Well,
stay in, by the way.
it absolutely is. Hello, all my hypotheticals. It's Player2, and I'm here with none other than Connor, and we're gonna we're gonna do a tier list for the Black Ops Zombie maps because Black Ops Zombies is really near and dear to our hearts, and with the release of the trailer a couple weeks ago, by the time this video comes out, we were just kind of in the zombies mood. But it's not going to be on the quality of the map, the playability, the nostalgia, our favorites, nothing of that sort. Instead, we're going to be sorting them by how spoopy they are. And you'll see that
Yes.
our tiers are spoopy, actually horrific, basically terrifying for me, doesn't really do anything for me, and fart sound. So really just you don't want to be in F or D tier, and then S, A, and B are pretty much all all interchangeable based on how
Hey,
they
hey,
sound. But
hey. Shh, shh. That's not important. That's not important.
okay. Well, right off the bat, we've got Dereisen Draha or Dereisen Drak, however you want to pronounce it. Connor, I'm gonna let you. We can take turns talking about the maps and then see if we just agree about.
Yeah.
So I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, first off, I don't know what the deal is with the order of these. I was like, it's not like in any sort of sensible order. I was like, it looks like it's trying to go alphabetical for a little bit, but it's the first three are just completely wrong. So whatever. So Horizon, okay, I love this map. Of all of the time that I've put it in zombies, I've probably put in over 50% of my total zombies time into this map, right? Um,
That's a lot
I
of time.
it is a lot of time. It is technically many times, but I don't think it's particularly spoopy. I don't really get the spoopy vibes from this one. And I don't know, it like obviously there's everything with the keepers and like the ghosts and everything, like there's the nice supernatural element, but it's I don't know, I just never really got anything for this. Kingsley's gonna be growling in the background because I took him on a walk for like an hour, or like for an hour, and that was like 30 minutes ago, and now he's mad. So for me, like I put this one in doesn't really do anything for me.
Doesn't really do anything. Okay, might I suggest I'm inclined to agree with you, but then I remembered part of the process for getting the skull bow or the void
Mm-hmm.
bow is that you literally need to find a bunch of skulls and then they eat zombies. Is that not
Yeah,
spoopy? That's pretty
that's
cultish.
that's a little spoopy.
But
That's a little,
overall, in
yeah.
terms of what the map offers, it's a very minor part. And also the void bow is like the worst one, so chances are you're
Yeah.
not even gonna deal with that. Uh
I'd be I'd be willing to upgrade to basically terrifying. I don't feel like, or like B tier. I don't think this should go anywhere above B tier in terms of like
I
the
think we
actual
can put it in D
spookiness.
tier. I think we're gonna find a lot more spookier maps than Dryzen. I think you're right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right, goes in D tier. Garage Crovy, like Dryzen, is just a solid map, but we're not talking about good maps. We're not talking about enjoyable maps. We're talking about the terrifying aspect of it. The Manglers, they're just not scary. The like robots, they're not scary or creepy. They're just kind of obnoxious. They don't
Yeah.
do it for me like the Nova Crawlers and the zombie dogs do. Those guys can be kind of terrifying despite being easy to kill. Um, Dragons, I don't get the spoopy vibe from them. They're kind of spectacular and awesome and awful at the same time. Um, and I feel comforted having the ray gun Mark III and the shield there are fires across the map, but they're not fires that are dangerous to you, so they're kind of comforting and light. The map overall is pretty bright,
Hmm.
except for a few tunnels and going in the sewer. In terms of spoopiness, I gotta put this in fart sound because there's just nothing about it that I'm like particularly like scared or spooked over, you know?
Yeah, I kind of agree, or I agree with that for like a large, like the large, about 95% of it. I think is it really just like if we're trying to like rank these or like rank these zombies maps like they're movies, right, and how well they would fit into like a horror movie archetype, and
Oh,
how
sure, sure.
like because that's how I'm trying to think about it, right? And like it could, if I were to see this as a movie, would I be spooked? And this one, no. Like I just wouldn't. I think this one, the main deal is just like it's more of a thriller map than it is like an actual like horror sort of map. And so I agree. I agree with F tier. The only exception that I would have to that in this map is when you're doing lockdown and the claustrophobia
Ooh,
that you have in lockdown. That is
ooh.
the only point where it feels like okay, it's like I feel like this is you feel the walls closing in around you, and like that like gets the heart pumping a little bit. So I think that's the one part of this that might not get to D tier, but I'm also okay with F tier.
Yeah, I respect what you said about it, but I'm gonna put it in F tier just because I don't think it would do it for me as a horror movie. So,
Yeah,
as you
yeah, I
said.
agree with that.
All right, Transit, the one and only.
I'm thinking like I'm thinking that if this was a horror movie, it would be Shaun of the Dead. Like honestly, like that's the way that I feel about it. Is it's like because like some of the elements, like the way the like it almost has the effect of like Stephen King's The Mist with all the fog and everything like that.
Sure.
And it's
Yep.
just and you just wandering out into the in like or into the middle of these like towns and the farm and everything like that. And it's got like Children of the Corn elements and stuff like that. I honestly feel like I feel like I put this in B or A tier in terms of like the atmosphere that is set. And like, like in terms of what's the name of the bus driver? I can't even remember right now.
I don't know. I don't know if he
Yeah,
has
whatever.
a name. Does he?
I think he does, but I can't remember it off the top
I've
of my
never
head.
paid attention.
But like just like the like goofiness of him that's so off kilter in the context of everything else that's going on in this map. Like I feel like this is actually like a really good horror aesthetic. And I would say probably safe put it in B tier, but I'm kind of feeling like that line between B and A tier right now. It's not quite A tier for me, but I think this map does it pretty well in terms of like setting up, like my gripe with this map is the gameplay, not the not the atmosphere.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Mechanically, it does not work as a map. I do like it because it's one of those like kind of like Shaun of the Dead. It's like such a bad movie, it's good, you know.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
like a game like people have hated on Transit, and I've actually had some of my most enjoyable zombie experiences with Transit because it's so bad that it can be good sometimes. But
It just
you're
becomes hysterical at a certain point. Like
yeah,
just
you're on the
everything
hedge
keeps going wrong. Yeah.
you're on the hedge of A and B, and I think something that might boost it to A for you is that I was thinking it was S tier because it's got the fog. So already that's
Yep.
classic horror element. It's got
Yep.
like a literal core maze, got that. It's got a cabin in the woods. It's
Yep.
got a bunker in the midst of the cornfields. It's got an abandoned farm. It's got an electrical, magical, mystical being that you unlock as you try to do something that you think is going to help you. And it's got little Smeagol's that jump
Yep.
out of the dirt and claw at your
I knew
face.
that the denizens were going to be the last point that you had for this. I knew that
Yeah,
was coming.
the Smeagol's, the denizens, like they fall in line with what you were
Smeagol's.
saying about the well, they pretty much are. They fall in line with what you were
Yeah.
saying with the bus driver, and that there's like they would be terrifying if in real life you're just walking along the road and one of them popped out. But then like the moment you got to look at them in decent lighting, you'd be like, what the heck? What is
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
So I do think there is a little bit of ridiculousness, especially because we need to keep in mind that the four characters we're also playing add to like the brevity of it. In
Oh
that
yeah.
like they're all ridiculous characters, and so I am now pulled down from S tier to actually horrific or basically
Okay,
terrifying for me. But I'll let you place it.
I am absolutely okay with A tier. I'm
All
absolutely
right.
okay with A tier. And honestly, like the only reason why I don't put it in S tier for me is because like, you know, Shaun of the Dead, like the brevity of it is what keeps it from being completely horrifying. There's a difference between Shaun of the Dead and Hereditary. Those are two very different movies. And and the difference is the brevity in the first one makes it so that the horror isn't as intense. And so I definitely feel like A is a safe place for this.
Admittedly, I don't know about Connor, but I have not played this map nearly as much as I've played the other maps.
Absolutely not.
But I mean that can be said about like all of the Black Ops 4 maps except for 9 and maybe Dead of Night. But Ancient Evil, I think the premise of it, like spoiler alert, you're trying to help a goddess who turns out to be like a Medusa creature, which is
Also,
inherently
thanks for throwing out spoiler alert when that map has been out for I think 2 years at this point.
hey, maybe some of our friends who watch this channel are like, we're thinking, hey, maybe I'll get into Black Ops Zombies.
They had adequate time. They had their chance. I
They
think we
really
can
did.
spoil it now.
They really did. Aside from the fact that like there's a Gorgon like that's gonna get you
Mhm.
at the end of the game, I don't think
Yeah.
there's anything about this that is particularly spooky. Um, kind of like it's mystical. I'd give it the mystical thing, and I
Oh yeah.
definitely think if you turned it into a movie, you could have horror elements. But
Mhm.
as the game stands, I'm not spooked by it. So
Absolutely.
I kind of want to put it in fart sound.
That sounds good to me. All right. Ascension. Uh this one I this one I'm really thinking that it just is not really doing anything for me. I think this is a D tier. I don't really have a lot of like there's not a real big reason that I have for this one as to like I like that the mystique is like darker than everything or than like Garad and like Ancient Evil and like it has that like grimier feel and so it's a little bit more a little it embraces the spook a little bit better. But the monkeys, like just like
Yeah,
generally everything that's going on with that map, it's like you know, it's it's not that scary. It's just not. I don't know. It just does. It's not necessarily like I don't think it's fart sound, but I do think that it's just like it like the mystique that it adds is like kind of embraces it, but it just doesn't really do anything for me.
absolutely fair. So I think we can just jump right into Blood of the Dead. Um, Despite our personal feelings about how they butchered a perfectly good map and made it into
Haha.
something completely different, um, e- even though they had every opportunity to make it even better, we're not going
Hmm.
to talk about that. We're talking about the spoopiness of it. And there's all sorts of cult like events going on in this. There are skulls, Warden. It's spoopy because you think it's a map that you're going to be familiar with, but then you're not. And then there's this whole
Yep.
catwalk where you have to run past a bunch of zombies and you think that your
Hmm.
abilities and sodas are going to help you, but oh, wait a minute, they changed up the abilities in the sodas, so screw you. And
Haha.
you think that the characters that you love and enjoy, like Richtof and Nikolai, Takeo and Tank, who are familiar to you, are going to be a comfort, but they're not. But you
Yeah.
finally get to the Easter egg cutscene and you think, well, maybe something good will happen from this. No,
No.
no, it's just sad, depressing, and bone chilling. In fact,
Yep.
so I don't think it's full on spoopy. Um, I think most of what creeps me out about this game is how bad it is in comparison to how it could be. So I would say basically terrifying for me. I'd put it at B tier for me
do
personally.
we want to do we want to talk about both this and Mob of the Dead at the
Well,
same
Mob of the Dead
time.
has its own thing, so.
I know it does have its own thing,
Oh,
but
okay.
I think for me, when I'm talking about when I'm thinking of the horror aesthetic between these, I'm pretty much putting Blood of the Dead in comparison to Mob of the Dead and everything that Mob of the Dead did right. And for me, I am just fine with beats here. I was like I the one thing was I just don't want this to go above what Mob of the Dead did, because and
Yeah.
this is also like really really personal for me because I have visited Alcatraz. I went there,
Ooh.
and dude, that place is haunted, and I do not like it. I did not like. My parents and my sister were like all about it, and they were like super super into it, and I was just like, man, this place is giving me the heebie-jeebies. I want to get out of here now. So and like looking back at the gameplay of that map, and like especially when you get to the escape portion and when you're going to the bridge, like that is, I think Mob of the Dead is, I think that's S tier. I think
Yeah.
far and away that one I feel safe just putting in S tier, just because, and it's grimier. That's the other thing, is like the Black Ops 2 graphics make it grimier on the eyes than the clarity of the Black Ops 4 graphics, which is almost like the advancement almost seems like a detriment when you're playing through it.
Yeah, and so like I want you to know, as soon as you said, "Hey, let's also do Mob of the Dead in comparison to Blood of the Dead," I immediately put it in spoopy tier because I
Yes,
was
thank
with you
you.
100%. Because
Thank you.
it's darker, it's grimier, like you said. The light that you do get is in flashes and
Mhm.
uh like fire, and there's the Hell's Retriever slash Redeemer. There's a literal pit that people speculate is just goes straight to hell. It's where you throw the grenades and you get points.
Yep.
There are the dogs, the Hellhound heads. Uh, the fact that you literally, like, the whole gimmick of this map is that when you die, you get afterlife, and so you get to wander around as a
Mhm.
ghost for a time. And the whole
Yeah.
premise of the story of the map is that you have the four characters constantly going through purgatory over and over and
Mhm.
over again until something breaks the cycle. And the thing that breaks the cycle is killing everybody. So like
Yes.
truly killing them. So the
Yes.
whole the story of it's also like the one map that's very clear about what the story is. There isn't any, you don't need to
Mhm.
do any like super deep diving or anything.
Yeah.
Which adds to, like, again, if we were looking at it, if this was a horror movie, like Blood of the Dead, I feel like that would be like four people wash up on an island and they find that it used to be an asylum, but now it's abandoned, whatever. But
Yeah.
Mob of the Dead, it's just it's like Lost meets, I don't know, some horror movie that I haven't seen because I don't watch horror movies, but like
Mhm.
where it's like
Yeah. No.
they're fighting this monster this whole time, and then you realize they were dead the whole time, and it's just like dun dun dun. So yeah,
Yeah.
spoopy.
And absolutely. And the thing that's so, like, I think there's going to be, for me, all the stuff that stands out, because I have a couple that I've picked out that are going to go straight to S tier for me. And the ones, like, the thing is, they have like a very centralized and like prominent horror theme that comes out in them. And this one is just being haunted. Everyone's haunted in this map. Every single person. There are ghosts everywhere. Like, this is the best way that you can do haunting and being haunted in a video game.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. Well said, Connor. I think you can take Buried, since Blood of the Dead and Mob of the Dead were kind of my thing. So
Buried, I like the abandoned feel, and I really like the like ghost town kind of vibe, and the notion that, like, you know, like the notion of like this place being created underground that's supposed to serve like almost as sort of like a safe haven, like almost, and then, you know, everything goes wrong, and especially with the haunted like house that's over on the side, that so much of the Easter egg is like embedded within. This has a lot of really good elements to me. um obviously Lenny is like a good source of brevity throughout the entirety of this,
Yep.
but I think this one I'm thinking just because it embraces so many different horror themes, I'm thinking A tier. I'm thinking A tier for this one.
Okay. So if it literally weren't for the fact that we're playing with the transit crew and
Yeah.
Lenny, I'd be with you. But it's
Okay.
also a pretty light map. The only thing that's actually scary, and it's also very easy. Um,
That's also
I
true.
know. Yeah, it's one of my favorite maps of all time, but I recognize that like you're not really challenged unless you go into the haunted mansion, and then it
Mhm.
becomes terrifying. There are very few moments in Black Ops Zombies history, where there's a specific spot where I feel like I'm doomed, and that's going into that
Mhm.
mansion because if one of your teammates messes up in there, you're all dead. You're all
Yep.
gone.
And that has happened many times.
Yep,
So,
that's happened. There's a part in the mansion where if the person in the lead is a total idiot or runs out of ammo or whatever, you're all dead. You're just
yep.
all dead. And so that is terrifying. That is spoopy. And after that, there's the whole thing with the maze. Like, where do I go? How do I find safety? But I just think they're like the dialogue that the transit crew spits out like every 2 seconds about Lenny and crawlers just makes it so that I cannot. I'm okay to agree to disagree on this one, but I think I'm putting it in B tier.
Yeah, no, that's fine by me. I like my main thing is just like the wide range of sort of horror themes
Yes.
that are embraced in this. That's why I was feeling, but I was willing to negotiate between A and B tier. It's like I felt like it was probably on the lower end of A tier. So yeah, no, that's just
I
fine
might
by
move
me.
it up depending on where the other ones land.
Depending on how we feel when we're done
Yeah,
with this.
yeah. Here's the thing about Call of the Dead. Literally, the whole premise of the map is that it's supposed to be George Romero filming horror action movie stars in a zombie apocalypse, and so it starts off actually kind of goofy and silly, but it gets creepy real quick because the fog rolls in and you can't see anything. The water starts to freeze you to the bone to the point that you might just die wandering around in it. All the while, a gigantic undead George Romero is slowly lumbering toward you. And the thing is, there's something a little unnerving, more unnerving. Like if you have something charging at you, you just think that's something I have to deal with, right? That I need to fight or die here. And like your instincts kick in. But when there's something slowly lumbering toward you and it's near invincible, that's when you're terrified because it's like, I know I
Yeah.
can run and run and run, and he will still eventually catch up to me. And
And he
I can't
knows
kill
where I
him.
am.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he knows
he
where I
knows
am at
where I
all
am
times.
always.
And if I anger him, he makes the zombies around him even stronger and faster. And it's just the whole screen shakes. I really like Call of the Dead despite its shortcomings. And I think it's got a lot of spoopy elements. Very intentionally, I think. Also, I do want to touch on the VR-11 is the weirdest wonder weapon we've seen. It literally turns the zombies into humans so that the remaining zombies chase the human to go
Yep.
presumably eat and kill them so that you can get away. And that is the
Yeah.
weird, and it plays a role in the Easter egg. It plays a role in the story.
Yeah, it's
So
horrific.
it's so
Like
messed up.
that wonder weapon is actually horrific. Like that's more horrific than the baby maker. Like it's just like
Yeah.
I'd rather just punt babies like after punt zombies after turning them into babies than literally like create a person to go like save. That's literally like I'm like literally zero sum. He dies so that I can live. Like that feels so bad, man. It feels so bad.
Like he was perfectly happy being a mindless zombie, right? Chasing you. And then you just pull him into this harsh reality and say, "Good luck, we're not even gonna give you a gun."
And the other thing is he's already been a human, right? Like he's already been a human that's been turned into the zombie. You're doing the same for the second time minimum, which is that's so mean. That's such a mean thing.
I would love it if like if somehow there's an algorithm to keep track of like what like AI that was. So like you change a zombie into a human then they die, and then that AI like number 32 comes back the next wave, and you hit him again and again.
It's just like stop doing this to me. I can't die.
Anyway, I put it at actually horrific because I don't think it's quite as spoopy as Mob of the Dead. I think it would be a disservice to Mob of the Dead to put them in the same category, but I do think it falls kind of in the realm of transit.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. All right, Doris. Yeah, I mean, spooky lights, right? And
Right.
and dogs and teleporters. Ooh. So
yeah,
that's what I got.
Die Rise. So this introduces the Nova Crawlers as jumping jacks, which I gotta be honest, the first couple times I played, the jumping jacks were terrifying because you can't track them. You didn't know at the time that the Sliquefier just wrecks these things. So when you first play it a few times, these guys come around round 5 and they just mess up your day.
Not to mention the clicking sound that they make. That's very, very unnerving.
That not realizing that the elevators can crush you. That Die Rise has a lot of surprises. A lot of them having to do with gravity and slipping. But Die Rise, I think, is a map with like the cheesy and cheap jump scares, but nothing of substance. You know, if I was watching a movie of Die Rise, it would be the crew running, and then one of them almost falls off the edge, and then the music spikes like, oh no, they're gonna fall over, and then they don't. And then like, oh no, the elevator's gonna crush one of them, and then it doesn't. Like, oh, the jumping jack lands right in front of them, but then jumps across the room for some reason. So it's like, it's just kind of wacky. Like it gets you for a second, and then you realize how kind of dumb everything is. So I won't put it quite at fart sound, but I'm gonna put it at doesn't really do anything for me. And I'm actually gonna put it probably in front of Ascension, but behind her Eisen.
Okay. I agree with that.
Before you say anything about the next map, can I hypothesize that this is an S tier?
I don't think this is S tier.
Okay, I was wrong. All right. I was trying to guess what your S tiers were. Go ahead.
Okay. This Dead of the Night is if Knives Out was a slasher flick. I love the plot of this map. I like in the way that this map is like set up in the like it almost feels like if you were trying to make a werewolf slasher movie from like the perspective of like one of those like stereotypical prim and proper British folks in like 1835. Like it almost feels like that, where it's supposed to be refined, but also there's a werewolf and just going around just murking folks. And so I don't know. I think this one is A tier. I don't think it's quite S tier. But I do love the way, like, I could definitely see myself watching this as a movie and like being spooked and like to a certain extent. Not like, you know, if I was watching Mob of the Dead as a movie, that would have some serious spook in it. But like I think this one, I would enjoy it. I think it's got really good horror elements to it. I think it's A tier.
Okay. I'm inclined to agree with you. I would say high A tier because on top of werewolves and the zombies that are naturally in it, there are also vampires.
Vampires too. Yep.
There are vampires and ghoulies because they're spirits wandering the halls that lead you to other things. And
do not talk about ghoulies.
But that's the thing. In a spoopy list, I gotta talk about them so that maybe you think higher of the map. I know you don't like them. But I think it's like, I think you're right. What keeps it from maybe being S tier is that it maybe the problem is that it's trying to do too many things at once, so that it's not exactly. It's like Alien versus Predator. You know, Alien, scary movie. Predator, scary movie. When you combine them, it just becomes kind of like cliche action film from like the 90s or whatever, because now it's like humans versus zombies versus werewolves versus vampires. Also, the humans are like the cast from Clue. So
and then we get kind of like a Gatoroid versus Mega Snakes sort of situation where it's just like, all right, man, I can't keep everything straight with this. There are too many things that are going wrong.
Yeah, I think Dead of Night is like the movie that follows a very successful horror series, and then they just need one more movie to make the monies, and so they just like let's just combine all the villains from the previous ones. So yeah. I agree. It's not quite S tier. It does have the elements of like the gothic horror films, but not in the ways that I think matter in terms of spoopiness. So yeah, A tier is good. I think you're right.
Perfect.
All right. So 5 has 2 renditions, and I think it's important to distinguish them from each other because one is Black Ops 1, and that is dark. It is grainy. It is old looking. It is gross. The other 5 and honestly, there's just nowhere to go on the original 5. There's nowhere to go. It's every place is awful. All the doors cost way too much money. There are no good guns until you get to the mystery box. And then once you finally get a good gun from the box, guess what happens? The Pentagon thief shows up and steals your gun. So there's just also there are weird experiments and stuff going down in the basement of the Pentagon. And like there are teleporters that lead you every which way. The newer one, I feel pretty safe on the newer one, honestly. Like I feel like there are places where you can kind of camp out, places that are kind of safe. There is no Pentagon thief. Wait, is there?
I don't think there is. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't play 5 very much because the first one's bad and the second one's forgettable. Like that's what it comes down to. So we're just gonna go with original 5 because I think that's the spoopier one. Because of the Pentagon thief, he's a really weird boss that he himself is not dangerous to you. He just sets you up to fail. And I think it's like if you watch characters in a horror movie finally get to the shed with the shotgun in it, and then like something happens where the shotgun breaks or whatever, and now it's all the more terrifying because you had your moment of hope taken away from you. So but I don't want to say it's super spoopy. So there are also Nova crawlers and they freak me out. They give me the heebie-jeebies, you know? I'm gonna go basically terrifying for me, and I'm gonna put it after Blood of the Dead and Buried, of course. Buried is top for B tier.
Okay.
All right, 9 to you.
All right. This one I feel a lot the same as I do with Ancient Evil. I like the content of this map is so surrounded in like everything going on. Like obviously, since it's 9 in Roman numerals, it's about Rome. They're in Rome. Spoiler alert. You find that out like 3 seconds into the map anyway, and you don't even need to look at the map to know that they're in Rome. But yeah, no, it's like the tigers are kind of scary. I don't know.
What about the
what's his
father, the Blight Fathers or whatever?
Yeah, the Blight Fathers. That's a good point.
Naughty Daddies.
That's right. I forgot
the bad daddies.
What they called them. No, like that's definitely the scariest part of this map. I think that alone. This one I feel a little bit different from from Garad and Ancient Evil. I don't think it's Fart Sound. I think it's D tier. I don't think it's at the level. I don't think it's at the level of 5 or anything that we have in B tier right now. Just because I think it's above Ascension. I also think it's above Die Rise. I don't think it's quite Horizon, but I don't know. This one just doesn't like outside of the Blight Fathers, they're just not there. There's just not a lot there that's actually like in the Blight Father to a certain extent. It's like there are two scary aspects of it, and the first one is just seeing it for the first time and being like, oh, dear God, and then like. And then when it grabs you, the grabbing part is something that like never really goes away, but like the gore of seeing it for the first time is something that's kind of it loses its sting pretty fast. And so I don't know. I'm thinking D tier for this one.
All right, Theater of the Damned, Kino der Toten, very nostalgic map for me. It's the first map I played, and so when I see it, my first thought is actually comfort, because it's a map that I have had in my memory and in my soul for the longest amount of time. So if there's ever a time where I want to feel safe while killing the undead, it's this map. However, the first map, and it's a bit better in the second. The first map is dark. There are weird reflections and silhouettes and shadows in the glass. There are like zombies in like barrels, and you can barely see their faces. This map also includes the Nova Crawlers, one of the first maps to do so. And it like once you turn on the power, you hear the Nova Crawlers like tearing through the ceilings in like different areas. It's got the Hellhounds, which are kind of creepy boss zombies, but otherwise it's kind of comforting because you're indoors, but at the same time, like everything's boarded up, and it feels like you're the one being kept in rather the zombies being kept out. And with that, I would say it's probably top of doesn't really do anything for me. Just because there is a level of comfort that comes with this map. But I think it's spookier than Der Eisen and the rest of the ones in D tier. But I'm interested to hear how you feel, since this wasn't the first map that you played.
I think that this is low B tier. And the reason why I say that, I agree with everything that you said, and the Nova Crawlers and everything like that. And it doesn't have the same you know, there is a little bit of a comforting feeling with that, rather than like, you know, the absolute fear. But it's the teleporting.
Oh,
it's the teleporting.
Oh yes.
And when you go to these places, when we're thinking about the original Kino, you have no idea what's going on in these places. And like getting sent there and being like, what the hell, man? Like that's why I think it's B tier. Is like that bumps it up to B tier for me. Is like when you get to do the teleports back from Pack-a-Punch, and you're just sent to these random places, and you're just like, dude, I don't feel good about this one. It's just like, it's so unsettling those first couple of times that you do that. And if you're not fully keyed in on the story, and when we think from the perspective of like being in Black Ops 1 and like now having all the information that we have past Kino, but like in that point when you're getting sent to this room that's just got this bloody like operator's chair, and then there's just like a film ring on it, just like, dude, I don't like it. I'm not about it. Like, I don't want to be here.
You mentioned the films that like you can stick into the projector, and you actually see like kind of short zombie horror films. Yeah. Yeah, I forgot about that aspect. Like, you think that would be the main premise since it's the Theater of the Damned, but yeah, that definitely adds up the spoopiness level for me. You're right. So I agree.
So we okay with B tier?
Yeah, B tier sounds good.
Okay. Perfect.
Moon to you.
Great map. And granted, I mean, I think we need to talk about, like, we do need to put it in context with the original, like the Black Ops 1 Moon.
Yep.
And then we have the Black Ops 3 remaster. And everything that goes along with both of those. The original, the big thing for me between those two, and the big difference maker for me, is just how and this is a point that I'm going to keep going back to with those early maps, how grimy and gritty all of the gameplay is with that, just based on the color palettes that they use, because everything in Moon is just gray, and
Yes.
you feel like your own life is being sucked out of you throughout the course of this map. And granted, as you're going through the Easter egg, everything starts getting more and more freaky when you're dealing with this haunted Samantha and everything like that. I'm gonna need your help with this one, because I don't know if it's A tier or S tier. I think it's right at that line for me. I don't have necessarily the a pointed a theme that I can go to and just be like, okay, this is what makes this map S tier. But I do think it does, in even the Black Ops 3, where it's more colorful, I still have that feeling, and not to mention the low gravity and almost the helplessness that comes along with low gravity, because you'd think being able to jump higher would give you a little bit more safety, and it absolutely does not. It does not do that whatsoever. So,
especially in Black Ops 1, where if you hit a single ledge, you go flying into just a horde of zombies, and it's like you can't stop yourself. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So I think I'm right at that line between A and S tier. What are your thoughts?
So, a couple things to consider on top of what you've already mentioned. We'll go with Moon 1 over Moon 2.0, just because Moon 2.0 is just the less spookier one. So we'll go with the higher spookier one. Grimy. The starting area is, first of all, you think you're in a good spot. You think you're next to Pack-a-Punch, you're next to a soda. Everything seems relatively okay. And then you hear a boop, and zombies start rushing you. So it already gets your heart pounding. Then you're in space. Now there's the terror of not being able to breathe in space. So there's that. Then you think, okay, well, now that I have the suit on, I'm safe, right? But then it turns out there are these big giant excavator drills that start tearing down the places that have oxygen in it. So you're like, okay, well, I got to stop that. But I can't wear a suit and stop that at the same time. So now I have to wander around space without a suit on. So you're trying to juggle all these different things in Moon, all the while trying to avoid this slow, lumbering astronaut that will take your sodas, teleport you to 1 health, and you are 1 hit away from death. And you might have a suit on, you might not. It just depends on what you were doing when you got caught. And for some reason, that astronaut will always find you right in a doorway, so you can't get away. Yep. It's just, you're done for.
100% of the time.
Yep. And so I think it's got the aspect of Call of the Dead, where you have a slow, lumbering, very difficult to kill bot. Actually, he's not too difficult to kill, but he keeps coming back regularly, coming after you. You've got the darkness of Transit, where it's just everything's gray, it's foggy. As you said, it feels like the life is being sucked out of. Moon is literally a lifeless place. You are the only life on the map. There is a biodome or whatever, but even that can get destroyed. So the one place of hope you have is not even safe. So yeah, and then if that's all there was, I would say it belongs with Transit and Call of the Dead, since it's got similar aspects. But if you think about the ending of the Easter egg, literally what you do is you hand off the control to Edward Richtofen, who is a crazy scientist who's been kind of sort of helping you, but then you find out for his own goals. You hand off the power of the zombies to him, and then you blow up the Earth. You destroy so any hope you have of returning to normal has just been completely eradicated at this point. So it's you battle through Moon thinking maybe we'll get to return to Earth and all the colorful, pretty, comforting maps, and no, it just goes to crap. And that's where Transit starts off. Actually, Transit jumps off of Moon, and I think for Moon to create Transit at A tier, I think it belongs at S tier. I think I will help you bump it up.
Yeah, no, I am just fine with that. They're like I always for some reason I always forget about the final part of that Easter egg, and it's like, yep. Once you brought that up, it's like, oh yeah, yeah, that's right. The destruction of the planet. That's right. That's how that map ends. So yeah, no, I fully agree. I'm on board now.